issues on a 5-minute basis, whereas it may take you a day or two or a week or two to get into court, be heard on that, and so it's too late for the parents. So the parent coordinator sometimes can really make a snap decision without meeting with the parties. Just get them on a conference call and make the decision that needs to be made quickly if there's an emergency.
Alyce, you're giving lots of good information. So make sure that we end up giving your information so people know where to reach you. Once again, this is how you get in touch with Attorney Alyce Pennington. That's her website and her telephone number. How do you get to be a parent coordinator? Does the judge appoint you, or is it part of an agreement, or how do you get what are the mechanics of that?
Well, at some point the judge does have to appoint you. Sometimes the court has seen the parties a little too often and realizes that they're in high conflict, and the courts realize that high conflict really does have such an effect on children, and so they try to diffuse that high conflict and kind of defer the decision making to someone else, and that someone else often is a parent coordinator. Other times we see, even in the divorce decree, the lawyers recognize that these people.
Could you do that? I mean, I've done that. Can you actually put it into the agreement or the judgment there'll be a parent coordinator appointed?
Yes, for high conflict cases, and we know what those cases are like.
I think the statistic I always found interesting is I think that what 20% of the cases take, it's like everything else, like 80% of the time of the court. It's the high conflict cases are difficult. So this defers some of the high conflict.
It does. It does. So when you see those cases coming, you can build that in. So some parties will call me up and ask if I'd be willing to be a parent coordinator for this new case that's graduating and getting divorced, but that they see there may be issues in the future.
But at that point, so the people are agreeing in advance who the parent coordinator is going to be?
Right.
And is that the same thing if the judge appoints somebody, or can the judge do it without the parties agreeing?
The judges can do it without the parties agreeing, but they usually like to have the parties agreeing as to the concept of parent coordinator. And oftentimes the parties can reach an agreement about who that's going to be. Sometimes the judges just will say, I'm going to appoint a parent coordinator and you have no say in it. So lots of different ways that happens, but always there needs to be an order of appointment.
Is there, by the way, do you think there's any sense of the people listen to a judge more than listen to a coordinator, or is there's?
Well, I think a lot of the clients that I service are so embroiled in the conflict that they're not listening to much of anybody. They're listening to their own inner voices, and they're still dealing with some anger or hurts or old issues.
It's painful, you know. It's a very painful process.
It is, and that really comes to bear in trying to raise your children together. Sometimes you can't let go of somebody having an affair or various slights that have happened through the years, and so they can't let go of that. Even to reach agreements about what school Johnny's going to go to, or can Johnny play football or softball.
Yeah, we've often known, I guess, we have the parenting education classes that we have for people going through a divorce. I always often that they probably should have them before the people get married, even, or before they have children, to learn some of those things. But how about the fee on this? What's the cost for people, and who pays it?
Well, the fees vary depending on who the person is going to be as the parent coordinator. Typically those fees are the regular hourly rate of whatever that person charges. Sometimes there can be no charge if you are qualified for the low income level, and the only people that I'm aware of do the no fee is conciliation court, and that's a rare case if you qualify.
Conciliation courts also function as parent coordinators? Yes.
There are a number of the mental health professionals there that are trained as parent coordinators and act as parent coordinators.
That's good. What's the role between attorneys, and when people have attorneys, they're fighting it out? How does the interaction between the attorneys and the parties and the parent coordinator work? And once again, if you have examples of this stuff, I always love examples, and people like sort of real life things. I know it's sometimes difficult to do, but
sometimes I have attorneys who call me every other day and give the closing arguments of the particular fight that the parties are going through. And what I tell right at the beginning, I tell the parties, the parents, the mom and dad, and also the attorneys that, look, it really is going to work better. You're going to save money, and this is my practice, that I'm not going to speak to the lawyers unless I have a specific question for them. That I'm going to speak with mom and dad, and we're going to resolve it this way. And
do the lawyers actually let you do that? I mean, it seems to me lawyers are, and I've been there. I mean, we're very controlling.
Yes, we are. We can be. We're used to being in charge and advocating for our clients. some of the parents will go to their lawyers and talk about any issues that are coming up. So they're free behind the scenes to involve their lawyers. But as far as I know, most of the parent coordinators involve the lawyers very little.
Actually, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about this before, but the parent coordinators are after the divorce is granted, or can they be there before the judge? Before the divorce is granted?
It's possible to have it before, because sometimes we have ongoing disputes. But I would think that's exceedingly rare.
So most of them are after the fact. So I was interested and wonder if you got involved in how it works if the case is in a collaborative case or a mediated case or an adversary case. Does that make any difference at all for the parent coordinator?
I've never had a collaborative case come to me as a parent coordinator. I am trained as a collaborative lawyer, so I do a lot of those cases, but I've never had one come up that way. But I have had mediated cases come to me, and I've also had cases that were hard litigated fought and cases that settled and parties reached agreements.
I mean, currently when I mediate cases, I very often will encourage a parent coordinator, because you can see when you're mediating, this is that they need ongoing issues that they can't always agree on what color the sky is, and so that they need somebody as the sort of the tiebreaker in doing those things.
Mediated cases, a lot of those people really have self-selected mediation.
Absolutely.
So I think that those people are probably less likely to have the high conflict, although that's not 100%
a lot of times people,
true.
unfortunately, I think a lot of people also pick mediation because I think it's less expensive, and
that's true.
And sometimes you'll still get the high conflict cases in that case. But you've already alluded a little bit to what kind of cases come to parent coordinators. Are there any other ones that you can think of that you haven't talked about?
Well, we see all kinds of things. I spoke briefly about activities, and that's where do we exchange? Dad doesn't return the clothing to me. Mom doesn't take the child to football practice. So we have selecting activities, where the meeting place is going to be for the exchange, and the issues about clothing are perennial.
What are some of the issues about clothing?
Well, one parent refuses to return the special outfit that little Susie wants because the one parent bought that, so I'm not going to send it to your house. And so I try to tell people, well, these are the children's clothing items, not your clothing items. Please let them go back and forth.
You hear this issue occasionally I used to hear too, where people would say, I always send clothing and it never comes back.
Exactly. That's the most frequent complaint between parents. And so we try to work out those kinds of issues.
What are some of your magic bullets here?
Sometimes we require that people return every single item, but that doesn't really work well. So I usually require coats, swimsuits, softball practice uniforms, and those sorts of things that the child really needs on a regular basis, that those things absolutely have to move back and forth. And that both parents, when they return the child to the other parent or send the child to the other parent, that they dress the child in appropriate clothing. I have a lot of parents who complain, my child came back and the shoes were too small, and the other parent is sending back awful raggedy looking clothing and keeping my wonderful clothing that I just bought. So we struggle to deal with those issues, and each case presents its own challenge.
And it is a real challenge. I think I want to say it. I think you're doing wonderful work, and again, it reminds me again to let's look at your